Alright guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we are going to be talking about the newly released Kelford cams for the Gen 1 B58. This is a pretty exciting mod, but I know from all the questions you guys have been sending me, this is obviously something that we don't talk about a lot, and just in general with modern B58s, it's not a really common modification. So a lot of people are wondering, if it's even useful, which stage they should get, or even like when you're looking at the breakdown, they have Gen 1, Gen 2, and then Gen 1.5, which kind of makes things confusing. Right when you thought you understood all the different B58s that are out there, this Gen 1.5 is kind of making us feel like we're back at square one. So in this video, I'm going to present to you all the information I have about the Kelford cam upgrades. So hopefully this can help you out if you're considering going this route for your specific build.
Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future.
So just for some background, if you guys aren't familiar with Kelford, the company has been in business for a while, and they've been making cams for a lot of different platforms, including the A90 Supra. So they've actually had their Gen 2 B58 cams as an option for over a year. It's just not a modification that a lot of people talk about. Pretty much all of the fastest A90 Supras are running some of their cams in their cylinder head. So it wasn't necessarily something that you saw people constantly posting about, buying cams and getting them installed on their vehicles. So I think that's why a lot of people are kind of wondering, is this mod useful or worth it if I'm stock turbo or maybe big turbo but stock engine? When does this mod actually make sense? So let's go ahead and talk about the differences that they have out there. So first of all, like I said, they've already released the Gen 2 B58 cam. Now they've also got cams for the Gen 1. However, the Gen 1 cams are split into two different versions, and they're calling it Gen 1 and Gen 1.5. Now, there isn't a new Gen 1.5 version of the B58 that you didn't know about. This is just their way of trying to separate differences in the cams to make sure that you're buying the correct one for your specific vehicle. So BMW actually made a change around July of 2017, and they basically changed the thread pitch for the central valve on your Vanos system. And this is critical because the central valve actually screws into your camshaft. So if you're not picking the correct cam, then you will not correctly be able to mount your Vanos system back onto the cam when you reassemble your engine. So they made the change around July of 2017, and you can see on Kelford's website, they're basically indicating that the cutoff is July builds, and if you have an August build and onward, then you basically get this Gen 1.5 cam instead. My car actually was a July 2017 build, so I wasn't really comfortable just knowing that that date was a cutoff, since in theory it could be any date in the month of July where they made that change. So I wanted to see if there was a visual way that you could inspect to see which version of the central valve is on your B58. And basically what I found is that the central valve has a different head design. So on a Gen 1 or the early Vanos systems, you'll see that the top is basically like a hex head design, whereas on the later model Gen 1s, they have this spline head design. And so it's very easy to see if you remove the Vanos actuator from your valve cover, then you can put a mirror back there and shine a light on it to see what the top of your central valve looks like. That's actually holding your Vanos cam gear onto the cam. And that will tell you whether you should get a Gen 1 or a Gen 1.5 version. It actually does have a different thread pitch inside of it. One's an M22 and one's an M21. So you want to make sure you order the right cam so that you can reassemble your Vanos system accurately. Now, I guess in theory, if you bought the wrong cam, then you could just buy the correct central valve for the cam that you purchased. But they're pretty expensive, brand new. They're around $300. So I don't really think it's worth it to add the extra investment if you can just do that inspection, make sure you know what's on your car, and then order the correct component. So let's talk about the different stages of cams, and you will see that there are three different stages that they provide. The first one, where you look at the applications, they basically list it as mostly for street cars. So you can see the uses are really mixed. There's a little bit of racing in there, maybe some road racing, but it's primarily for a car that you daily drive and you enjoy it as a street car. You just want the extra performance that a cam can provide. Then if you go to stage 2, it's a little bit less streetable and a little more geared towards racing. And so this is something that they have for dedicated drag race cars and anybody that basically is less focused on how their car drives on the street. It will have a more aggressive profile, so you're not necessarily going to have the same driving manners. It might be a little bit louder, a little bit more touchy on the throttle, but it's something that will give you a little more power. So if you're willing to accept that trade-off, then stage 2 would be the right option for you. And then stage 3 is basically for a dedicated race car for straight line racing. So you can see on the applications, they removed street driving. They even removed like road racing and circuit racing, because what I'm understanding from this application setup is it's basically just designed to give you a really high horsepower level and potentially a tight power band. So you might lose some drivability characteristics, especially in road racing where you're going around turns and you want to have really good throttle control and things like that. You might lose a lot of that with this stage 3 cam. And you can kind of understand why that is when you look at some of the actual details, and they provide the specs for the cams. So you can basically see the numbers on the left. Those are the duration values for the intake and the exhaust. Now keep in mind, these numbers are based on crankshaft rotations, and the car makes 2 rotations of the crank for every 1 rotation of the camshaft. So if you want to compare that to like an angle on the cam itself, you basically need to cut that number in half. But you can see going from stage 1 to stage 2, they increase both the intake and exhaust. And then on the stage 3, they make a slight increase to the intake, but a larger increase on the exhaust side. So you get that 288 cam duration. And then they also publish the actual valve lift. So again, you can see on the intake and the exhaust, when you go from stage 1 to stage 2, they actually keep the intake lift the same, but they increase the exhaust lift. And then for the stage 3, they increase both the intake and exhaust. However, I think the biggest change that I see is on the stage 3 cam, it completely deletes the Vanos system. So it basically replaces your Vanos with a static cam gear where you can actually set the timing, and they provide some recommended specifications for how you want to set that timing on there. But it's going to be more like a conventional or older style engine that doesn't have variable valve timing. Now, this can provide some advantages. It should be more reliable by deleting the Vanos system. That's just one less thing that you have to worry about when running such an aggressive cam. However, the Vanos system is a big contributor to why we have a wide power band, a responsive low end, just a lot of those things that we enjoy from a drivability perspective. So if you're going to be hitting your car hard and holding it at high RPM for 1,320 feet, this might work for you. But if you're going to be daily driving your car and worrying how it accelerates from a stoplight and how you get around turns and things like that, then it kind of loses the benefits of just being able to make more power. You still want a cam that provides good drivability characteristics. Now, they do provide some horsepower ratings for each stage, and before we jump into this, I want to keep in mind that cams provide a significant benefit by increasing airflow. Your airflow is everything that creates horsepower in your car. So you need to be able to suck a lot of air into the cylinder, and then you need to be able to get that air out into the exhaust. If you make that process more efficient and increase the flow, then you're going to be able to make more power. So that's where a cam comes in. If you have a cam with a bigger duration or a taller lift, that will basically take that 20 or 30 psi of air in your intake manifold and allow more of it to get sucked into the cylinder, so that when it ignites, it creates a bigger boom, which creates more power for you. So looking at the stage 1 offering, they're showing that it's rated for around 550 to 750 horsepower or a 58 to 68 millimeter turbo. So that obviously tells you right there, 550 horsepower is kind of on the high end for a stock turbo. If you're running ethanol or methanol and really pushing the stock turbo, this is still a mod that you can take advantage of. As long as you have the fuel system that can support the additional airflow, there's really no losing opportunity here. You're going to be able to make increased airflow, increased efficiency, increased spool, and all of those things benefit to make the car much faster. Now, if you go to a stage 2 cam, this is typically rated for an engine making from 750 to 1,000 horsepower, and for turbos from 62 to 72 millimeter turbos. So this is like more of the faster street cars. If you've got maybe a 9-second car, or even some of the cars that are running 8s, frankly, can definitely take advantage of this cam. And then they have the stage 3 that's rated for 1,200 plus. I'm assuming this is one where they're kind of penciling it in, as the faster cars get faster and show that it works. they'll just keep increasing that number, but that's kind of their top of the line camshaft to make as much power as most people would want. Now, a couple other notes and things that they mentioned. So all of the cams will require a valve spring and retainer upgrade. They actually do provide options themselves, and that's of course what they recommend. So if you want to buy everything as a package, you can buy it all through Kelford. And you'll also see that all of the pricing is the same for all of the cams, which is really nice. So it's really just up to you to determine which one is right for your build, but price shouldn't be a factor in picking a certain stage or anything like that. Just make sure you're picking the right one based on your goals, and the value will be the same at the end of the day. They also do come with a 12-month warranty, which of course is just for manufacturing defects. This is a mod that's designed for cars that are going to be pushing the limits. So if you break it from pushing your car, that's not something that's going to be covered under warranty. But if there was something that they did that was an actual manufacturing defect, then that warranty is covered for the original owner for up to 12 months. So yeah, I mean, I'll leave all the links down in the description where you guys can check out their website and see more information on the cams. Hopefully the supply chain stuff is all worked out so they're actually able to keep these in stock. But I'm curious to see when we get more owners using these, just to see like how much benefit they get. I think I've seen some cars that dynoed before and after, and without any tuning changes, it's making an extra 50 horsepower, and with tuning changes, it makes an extra 100 plus. So it really just depends on the build, the turbo, the tune. You know, a lot of stuff goes into play when you're considering how much you can take advantage of these cams. But obviously, any setup will work. It's just a really expensive mod to install. You guys have probably seen some of the comments where the B58's biggest downfall is the whole timing system is at the back of the engine. So it's really hard to access to set the timing and remove the cams and stuff. So assume that it's going to be a lot of labor, but once it's installed, it should be a mod that you can really enjoy. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.